إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. One of the greatest challenges that I have always is living up to introductions. So I will do what I heard. There was a very intelligent guy who was translating for a great scholar who was speaking in Arabic. So this guy said to the people beforehand, he said that every time I tell you laugh, you laugh. Doesn't matter what he said, he didn't say that, you don't understand anyway. I will just tell you laugh, you laugh. So the people said fine. So this scholar would say something and he would speak for maybe 5 minutes and this interpreter would just say laugh and everybody would laugh. So after a while this scholar got concerned. He said, this seems to be working. I mean, I said something amusing and people are laughing, but how is this man, obviously his command of language is very superior because he is able to condense all that I say into one word. So how is he, how has he been able to do that? So he asked him, he said, what is this secret? Tell me how is that you are doing that? He said, sir, the problem is to translate all of what you are saying is too difficult. So I simply tell them laugh, they laugh. So living up to introductions is difficult. So I'm going to say to you that let us take whatever your principal and dean and head of the department, whatever he said, just accept it and say, Alhamdulillah, this is good. I want to start by also mentioning the event of Uttarakhand which Dr. Sajid mentioned for a couple of reasons. One of the places I teach is at the SSB Academy which is in Uttarakhand. And in this flood, the SSB Academy completely disappeared. The entire academy vanished. And one building which was there literally sort of broke into two. The rest of them disappeared. I mean, I was looking at the photographs and I said, well, where is the guest house that I usually stay at and so on? It's gone. So I have a sort of personal connection with Uttarakhand and whatever is happening or has happened there. And that is obviously there is a huge loss of life. I don't think we have any clue. Right now I don't think any numbers are there, but numbers really are meaningless because the death of one person is enough of a tragedy. I mean, you don't have to have 1 million people dying before we shed any tears. That's the sad part of it. But the other part of it, which is not the sad part of it, is that among the many people who have come to the aid of those people, two Muslim organizations, one is the Aligarh Muslim University, AMU, and the Jamaat-e-Islami are actually on the spot working, taking money and supplies and so on and so forth, which gives me a sense of a lot of goodness in our country still, despite some of the radical talk that we hear in all directions. And to me it's a matter of something that I am very happy about, that this aid which is going from Muslims who, according to the Sachar committee, are the poorest of the poor in this country. But people have the generosity and the connection of the heart with our brothers and sisters who are all citizens of the same country, that we take the time and trouble to do something about it. We don't just sit and watch and say, oh, how sad. So that is so I'm very happy about that, and I think I fully support what Dr. Sajid said. Each one of us must do what is in our power to do. One of my quotes on Twitter and elsewhere is something that I hold myself accountable for, which is, I say, I will not allow what is not in my control to prevent me from doing what is in my control. And let me repeat that. I say that I will not allow what is not in my control to prevent me from doing what is in my control. And I think this is a good maxim to have, because no matter how big and powerful you are, or no matter how weak and oppressed you are, there will always be things which are in your control, and there will always be things which are not in your control. And we have a choice. We can look at what is not in our control, and we can then feel helpless and say, after all, what can I do? I am only one person. That's a very common thing that people talk about. Say, well, what can I do? I am one person. But all global change comes from one person. Look at any major global revolution or life change that has happened, it all starts with one person. So each of us must do what is in our power to do. I was sharing some thoughts with some of my well, what do I call people about my age? Colleagues and friends. My father was a doctor. He was a physician and a surgeon. He qualified from Madras Medical College in 1952, 1952-53. And he spent his whole life, he died at the age of 80, and he spent his whole life practicing medicine and surgery. He did, I don't know how many thousand operations. And he started at a time when the major diagnostic instrument was a stethoscope. There was no such thing. The only scan you had was an X-ray, and beyond that there was almost nothing. All diagnosis was just done by looking at the patient. Major diagnostic tool was your eyes. Yeah? And so those doctors of that age, they developed some extremely amazing qualities. And I was mentioning to sir here that I remember my father telling me a story about the time when he was studying. And he said that it was his viva. He had to do a round of the ward, and his supervisor was observing. So he said, I went and sat by this man, an old man who was in the bed, and I asked him his condition. And the man launched off into this long story. And my father said that I started getting irritated because I knew what was the problem with him. I mean, after all, I'm a doctor, so you don't have to tell me all your story. And this is my viva, my supervisor is standing behind me, I'm tensed, I've got all these other beds to finish. And so he said, I wasn't rude or anything, but in my tone or in my way, my irritation showed. And he said, at the end of the viva, my supervisor failed me. So I asked him, he said, what did I do wrong? My diagnosis is correct, what I prescribed was correct, everything was correct, so why do you fail me? He said, your bedside manner was not correct. And that's why I failed you. He said, the patient needs to talk. And like to use your quote, the patient needs a patient hearing. He said that talking cures the patient. The patient needs to feel that I have completely explained my case, no matter how long it takes. And he said, you showed irritation in that. And that's what I want to begin with, because in the issue of how to win, I believe that there are what I call 4 fundamental laws: passion, discipline, courage, and the ability to inspire. I want to share with you 2 of my quotes. One is that return is proportional to investment. That is my day job. I teach people how to make money. And that's what I tell them. Return is proportional to investment. You want a big return, you have to put in more investment. Because no matter what the rate of return is, it is proportional to the actual investment. So how much you invest depending on the rate of return, that is the quantum of return that it will give you. Second thing I want to say to you with respect to passion is, the only reliable sign of passion is the willingness to work for it. A lot of people say that they are passionate about this and that. For example, I might tell you I'm passionate about flying. So you ask me, do you have a pilot's license? So I say no. So then you ask me, do you have a plan to join flying school and get a pilot's license? So I say no. So then I'm passionate about seeing other people flying. I'm not passionate about flying, because if I'm passionate about flying, then the question to ask is, then what are you doing to fulfill this passion of yours? So the first thing that the question I want to ask you and to leave with you is, what are you passionate about? So keep this question in your mind and answer it for yourself, because everything else depends on that. What are you passionate about? Passion is something which we have to understand about passion, is that great success needs great effort, needs heroic effort. It won't happen by just doing something when you feel like doing it, or doing it when you have time, and no. A life goal is something that we dedicate our entire life to. A life goal is not something we do in our spare time. So great success needs heroic effort. Passion fuels that heroic effort. Unless you are passionate, you will never make that effort. So there will always be doctors, because we are talking to medical students here. At the end of the day, you will qualify. Right? It's in the interest of the university to get you out of here, not keep you here for the rest of your life studying. So, people will find some way of ensuring that you get out of here. So, everybody qualifies. The question is, when you get out there, what is it that you want to be able to do? What is it that you want to be able to say about yourself? What is it that you want to be able to say about yourself? I'm not talking about the world. I'm talking about your own conscience, internally to yourself. Passion is to revel in the journey. Passionate people don't complain about hard work. Passionate people love hard work. One of the great basketball players in the US, he writes about his own life. He said he came from a very extremely poor inner city, crime-ridden environment. And he said that his father and he realized that the only way to get out of that was to excel in basketball. So then based on the basketball, he could get scholarships to universities and so on and so forth and make something of his life. So he said his father created a rule and said that every night, until he could put in 100 dunks, he could not go to sleep. His father would not let him sleep until he had put 100 balls into the basket. And you know what this guy says? He said, I would deliberately miss the last one. He said, I would deliberately miss the last shot so I could do more than 100. Now imagine, his father thinks he's forcing him, but this guy is forcing himself. He said, I would deliberately miss the last one. I mean, I just did 99, I can do 100. No. He would deliberately miss the last one so he could do more. Passionate people love what they do. And that's why they're able to make that heroic effort. A passionate person never complains about the thing that he does. And that's the reason why it's important to revel in the journey, to have the joy of the journey, because in the end, passion is highly infectious. And believe me, you need to be highly infectious to do the rest of what I'm telling you. And that's why I say passion itself is the payoff. The fact that you can do what you are passionate about, that itself is the payoff. I tell people, this kind of work which I am doing for you here, I get paid to do. This is how I eat. Believe it or not, People actually pay me to do this. So why do I do it for free? I'm doing it for free here. No one is paying me. Why do I do it for free? Because I'm passionate about this. And don't tell anybody. I even pay to do this. I won't do it for you. I know Abdullah Kunya and all, you don't need my charity. But the point I'm saying is that there are organizations, schools, where I pay for myself to go and talk to them. And that's why I'm saying we all must suffer from one of two things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Everybody. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And believe me, between the two, the pain of regret is much more painful. Much more painful. Those of you who are taking pictures of the slide, let me put you out of your misery. I will give you this entire presentation if you are nice to me at the end of this presentation. Number 2, discipline. Discipline is to accept that success is inevitable, but only for those who want it seriously. Now you might say this is kind of an oxymoron. I mean, of course I want success, you know. And why am I here? Why are you here is what you have to answer for yourself. Everyone says they want success, but not everyone gets success. And we'll talk about that in a while as to why that happens. So discipline is to accept that success is inevitable. Believe me, it's impossible to fail. Get this into your minds. It is not possible to fail. Success is absolutely inevitable, but only for those who want it seriously. So if you find a person, or if you find, I hope you are not one of them, but if you find a person who says they want success, but they're not successful, guess who's responsible? Discipline is to do what needs to be done, not only what you like to do. This is like the difference between a good friend and a bad friend. You know who's a good friend? A good friend is the one who tells you what you need to hear, not only what you want to hear. And similarly, discipline is to do what needs to be done, not only what you like to do. What is the unsaid here, which is even more important than what I'm saying? The unsaid is that there will always be things that you don't like to do, but which you must do if you want to succeed. Always. No one in the whole world is ever given the option to do only what they like to do. There will be things that you have to do no matter what. And the people who are successful are people who understand that. So they don't complain, they just go do it. And the last one is, discipline is to seek feedback and listen to what you need to hear. And that's because many of you must have heard this quote, practice makes perfect. How many of you heard practice makes perfect? How many of you believe that? Wrong. Practice makes permanent, does not make perfect. Correct practice makes perfect. Practice only makes perfect. Whatever you're doing, right or wrong, it becomes your habit because you just do it that many times, so it becomes permanent. And that's the reason why it's very much easier to train people who do not know something than to retrain people who already know that thing. It's much more difficult. It's hardwired inside. To get them to remove that and to rewire is very tough. Correct practice. What is the meaning of correct practice? Correct practice means that you have to have somebody in your life who will say to you, what you did just now is wrong. Don't do it this way, do it another way, and you need to have the patience to accept what the person is saying gracefully and thankfully. And that's why I say the difference between falling and failing is whether or not you decide to get up. The race does not end when you fall. The race ends when you fail to get up. So it doesn't matter how many times you fall. The race only ends. You're only out of the race when you don't get up. It's like boxing, for example. When is the person declared a winner? End of the countdown. The guy is still on the floor, lost. As long as he gets up, he's still in the game. Number 3, courage. Courage is to care more than others think is wise, to risk more than others think is safe, to challenge yourself unnecessarily, to pick your battles because not everything is worth fighting for, and finally to take the unpopular stand. My dear friends, let me assure you that only those who stand out can lead. Those who blend in are sheep. I never saw a sheep who leads anyone anywhere. And that's why you can have 1,000,000 sheep, you have nothing to fear. The courage is the ability to do what needs to be done, to say what needs to be said without worrying about popularity, to speak the truth and to stand for integrity no matter what. It is that willingness to take that call. You mentioned Gandhiji, so let me tell you a story about Gandhiji. His son Rajmohan Gandhi writes and he's written in his book, and he said that when they used to live in South Africa, and I have seen those areas, so I have actually a mental picture of the actual areas which he mentioned. And these are the days of apartheid, of segregation. So the whites had their areas of living, very beautiful housing and beautiful cities. And then came the Indians who were a couple of grades down, and then there were the African black people who were literally living in slums. Now what this also meant was that if you had to go to work and if you were not white, then you had to travel a long distance because the work areas were conveniently located for the white people. So Rajmohan Gandhi says that my father had to go, when he had to go to work, I used to drive him to his office, which was maybe 20-25 kilometers from where we used to live. So he said one day, and in the evening he would go and pick his father up and bring him home. I'm talking about the courage to take a stand. So he said that one day he decided to go and see a movie. Now Gandhiji had some very rigid views about movies and movie theaters and so on, right? So this guy, his son went to see a movie. He said, I got very involved in the movie and I forgot about the time. So I landed up to pick up my father 1 hour late. Now for his fate, one of Gandhiji's friends was in the movie hall. And of course, like all good people, he took a lot of trouble to go and give bad news. And these are the days of no mobile phones and so on. So imagine, how much trouble that man must have taken. He went to some place and he maybe paid some money to make a phone call, only to call Gandhiji and say that I saw your son in the movie theater. Such wonderful people we have in the world, huh? It was cheaper for him to keep shut, but he didn't. Anyway, so Rajmohan Gandhi says that when I reached my father asked me, what happened, why are you late? So I told him the car broke down, so I had to go to the mechanic. So he said, my father said to me, but so-and-so called me just now and told me that you were at the movie theater, he saw you in the theater. Is that correct? So his son said, well, I got caught. Now what do you do? I mean, the guy saw you, you got an eyewitness to say that I saw you in the theater, so he can't say, I couldn't tell him that this man was lying or something. No. So he said, yes, I was in the theater. He said, my father then said to me, before I tell you what Gandhiji said, think about this and say, what would one of you do, what would I do in that situation? Right? But you know what Gandhiji did? Gandhiji said to his son, he said, I have always told you never to tell lies. I've always told you, never be afraid of speaking the truth. But he said, obviously, I have not been able to convince you, because you have told me a lie. So obviously, I have not been able to remove this fear of speaking the truth from your heart. So I am the one who needs to be punished because I failed. So today I am going to. And he said, my father walked 25 kilometers home. Now, Gandhiji was no Iron Man or something, right? He was no international athlete. So it took him a long time to walk 25 kilometers. It takes anyone a long time, believe me. 25 kilometers is a reasonable military day's march. It's not fun and games. So he practically walked all night. And I'm talking about the South African bush. And his son says, I was driving the car behind him with the headlights. And he walked home. By the time he got home, he was almost on the point of collapse. And I drove the car behind him all the way home. And he said that day and that lie was the only lie I ever said until today. He said, I never spoke a lie again. That is the meaning of courage. The courage to do what it takes, to say what needs to be said, and to take the unpopular stand. I want to tell you the story of discipline and the story of courage. This is a man, a Bihari man, and his name is Dasrath Manjhi. Dasrath Manjhi, his wife suddenly developed some health issue, and he lived in a village. From where to get to the hospital, to get to the main road from which he could get a bus, was 19 kilometers. So by the time he got there, his wife died. So what did Dasrath Manjhi do? Dasrath Manjhi decided that nobody else must have this problem. So he decided to cut a road through this mountain. Sheer rock, 360 feet long, 25 feet high, 30 feet wide. Dasrath Manjhi, the day after his wife's funeral, took a chisel and a hammer, and he went and started cutting that rock. It took him 22 years, about the same time that it took Shah Jahan to build the Taj Mahal. From 1962 to 1984. We don't tell these stories, we tell stories of kings. But we need to tell these stories. Stories of people who have more value than any king. Imagine the courage of the man. And Dasrath Manjhi says that people used to laugh at him and people used to mock and so on. Like your quote. And then they fell silent. And Dasrath Manjhi continued until he made that road. Single one man. That's why I say I will not allow what is not in my control to prevent me from doing what is in my control. It was not in Dasrath Manjhi's control to convince the chief minister or the district collector or somebody to send a crew to cut a road, but it was in his control to take one chisel and one hammer and use his own effort, and the result was the same. Dasrath Manjhi died a few years ago. But his legacy to his village and his legacy to the people of that area continues. And that's why I want to say with regard to inspiration that a lamp doesn't light a room by doing anything to the room. It lights the room simply by being true to itself and fulfilling its own purpose. People ask me sometimes they say, please come and motivate our people. I say, I can't motivate anybody. Nobody can motivate anybody. People choose to motivate themselves. You can't take someone and twist him and say, now you are motivated. No. What can you do? You can display your own motivation. You can only give what you have. If you are passionate, your passion will communicate itself. If you are not passionate, there is nothing to communicate. And that's why inspiration. And why do we need inspiration? We need inspiration because we cannot succeed alone. We cannot succeed alone. And that's why I say in my book on family businesses, I've said that the only reason to do business is to serve. Money is a consequence of doing excellent work. Money is not the reason you work. Anyone who works for money is demeaning himself. Money is the natural consequence. Money has to come. There is no way money will not come if you are doing high quality work. But never work for money. Work to serve. Spread love, not hatred. Hatred is fire. The result is always ash. No matter who. Hatred is fire, fire burns. And the result is always ash. Spread love. Love everybody. And you know what's the great secret of this? Everyone loves dark chocolate. Or at least I think everyone loves dark chocolate. There's nothing so difficult about loving chocolate. There's nothing so difficult about loving the idea of sitting in a Rolls Royce or a Bentley. You know what is difficult? What is difficult is to love that person who is not like me, who doesn't think like me, who doesn't worship what I worship, who doesn't believe what I believe, who doesn't eat what I eat, who eats coconut oil instead of putting it on his head. Huh? Difficult to love. Difficult to love the one who is different. But I want to say to you one thing. That it is the great mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He caused us to be born and be citizens of and live in a country which probably has the maximum diversity of any nation in the world. Maximum diversity. I don't think there is any country in the world, I travel all around the world and I can tell you from my experience that there is no country in the world that has the kind of diversity that India has. If you start from Kerala and you go into UP and you go into further north into Bihar, if you go further north into Kashmir and so on, you are looking at people who are racially different, who look different, who talk different languages, who eat different food, their houses are different, even people, if you say Hindus, the Hindus in Kerala, their temples are different, the ones in the north, their temples are different. They worship different gods, different names. And if the Muslims think we worship one God, you know what we worship and you know what we don't worship. Let me not open that Pandora's box. Everything is different. Alhamdulillah, I have friends who are Nambudris, I have friends who are Chaturvedis, I have friends who are Nayars, I have friends who are Syrian Christians. One of them is the head of the department of orthopedics here in Mangalore, in the other medical college. And when he and I were in school together, we were in the same class together. I'm now talking 40 years. At that time, I wasn't even aware that Jacob Chacko was a Syrian Christian. I didn't even know there is something called Syrian Christian. Jacob Chacko was my friend, period. That was enough as far as I am concerned. I couldn't care less. And I don't think he cared one way or the other about what my religion was. Among the Muslims, I have friends who are Barelvi, I have friends who are Salafi, I have friends who are I am advisor to the Jamiat Ulama, all Deobandi and Tablighi scholars in South Africa. I have got friends, alhamdulillah, everywhere in every single group. Well, I'm not boasting, I'm just telling you that if you want to lead, if you want to be a leader, what is the single most important thing you need? Followers. Leader means somebody who somebody follows. If you say, I am a leader, and you're walking down the street and you turn around, there's no one behind you, believe me, you are not a leader. You are a loner, you're not a leader. If you want to influence, you have to have somebody who will listen to you. Does it mean therefore that my religion, my belief is a khichdi? No, I'm absolutely clear in my mind about what I believe. No doubt. But do I have a place in my heart also for someone who believes something else? Yes, absolutely, without any problem. And that is what I am proposing to you. Learn to love people. Learn to respect people. Learn to respect diversity. Learn to respect difference. Learn to appreciate. Please notice, I do not use the term tolerate. People like to say we should have tolerance. I said, no, we should not have tolerance. You know why we should not have tolerance? What do you tolerate? You tolerate something which is basically unpleasant, but I decide to live with it. To me, the basis of tolerance is wrong. We must learn to appreciate, not tolerate. Tolerate what? Appreciate the differences that we find. And then you will find that people's hearts will turn to you, hearts will join. If there is one message that I want to leave here with you is, and that message is, practice coming together. Do not listen to anyone who teaches or preaches a message of standing apart from people. Anyone who teaches or preaches a message of hatred, reject them. I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. If they're telling you to hate somebody else, hate them. Hate their message. Reject them. This is not what our Prophet practiced. This is not what Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam practiced. This is not what Allah said about His messenger. He called him Rahmatul lil Alameen. He said a mercy to all of creation. He did not say Rahmatul lil Muslimin. He did not say I sent this prophet as mercy to the Muslims. No. Rahmatul lil Alameen. Mercy to everything. Mercy to the Muslims, to the Hindus, to the Jews, to the Christians, to the Sikhs, to the atheists, to the cattle, to the animals, to the plants, to the environment, every single thing to be looked at from the aspect of mercy. And especially, I'm speaking to the Muslims here because I'm saying especially, we like to say that we are the followers of Muhammad. Being a follower of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not only to grow a beard or wear a turban. It is to have the belief of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is to have the manners of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is to have the akhlaq of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is to have the dealings the way that he used to deal with people, is to have a smile on the face, is to be good to your families, to your wives and your children, is to be respectful to the elders, is to honor people, is to respect people, is to value and appreciate people. That is the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not only the outside appearance. It is the entire life of the Prophet ﷺ, which is an example. And if we stand here and we say that we are the followers of Muhammad ﷺ, let other people see that with their eyes, not listen to some bhashan. Nobody is interested in bhashans. People may sit there out of politeness. They're not interested in that. They're interested in seeing that Islam in action. And that's why, like when I go to America, the Americans say, put up or shut up. They say, either show it or shut up. Don't talk about Islam. You're not interested. Goodbye. Even the Muslims are not interested in listening about Islam. Why should anybody else be interested? If this Islam is so good, show it. I want to see it. I want to actually experience, see it. And that is the challenge, inspiring others. Because if we cannot take others with us, believe me, no matter how talented you are, no matter what kind of a genius you are, you will fail. Take my word for it. You will fail. There's no way that you can succeed or I can succeed if we cannot inspire people. If we cannot have people who love us, if we cannot have people who will support us, if we cannot have people who are our friends. And having a small coterie of people who think like me, that's rubbish. That small coterie is worthless. What we need is a wide expanse of people, all kinds of people, who are willing to give you the time of day, who are willing to open the door for you. That is what leads to success. And I thought, let me share with you another story. It's good to talk, true stories, real affairs. This is actually a good story for both for leadership as well as for business ideas. He created an organization called Samman, right? Respect. And his name is Irfan Alam, and he started in Patna this organization. He was nominated as one of 30 Indian entrepreneurs in the National Entrepreneurship Network, and Tata Group, they promoted that. What he's done is very simple thing. He's taken cycle rickshaws and he put uniforms on those guys. He painted up those rickshaws nicely. In the front, as you can see, is a first aid box of the rickshaw. And in the rickshaw, when you sit in the rickshaw, the guy will give you a bottle of water, he gives you a newspaper and so on, and he puts on some, there's a radio or whatever it is, so he puts on that and so on, and then he tells you, sir, where can I take you? Then he takes his rickshaw and he takes you, he charges you a bit of a premium on that, but the revenue they get is from advertising on the backs, on the canopy of the rickshaw. Now, it's a brilliant business idea, number one. Number two, this guy has been able to empower a whole lot of poor people who really are rickshaw pullers. I mean, you can't, life cannot get more difficult than that usually. So he's given them something which is worthwhile. He is generating an income from that for himself and for those people. And he's providing a value-added service. I mean, it's not a Rolls Royce, but it's better than the normal rickshaw. So he's providing a good service for the community. So it's a good story, both in terms of leadership as well as in terms of business ideas and saying how can we develop. I told you I teach how to make money. So this is one of the things that people can think of doing. My take on this story is because of the ability to involve a whole lot of people in something which is beneficial for them. I told you I will talk a little bit about why people don't succeed even though they want success. I want to say to you that there are two stances of life, and I call them the master stance and the victim stance. In the life of every man or woman opens a window of opportunity, usually once, sometimes maybe more than once, but this window opens. Those who take advantage of that window when it opens are those who succeed. Now there are two things about this window of opportunity. One, that it opens in the life of every person, and two, that it closes, it shuts. After a time, it shuts. And believe me, once your window of opportunity has shut, your life is effectively over, even if you remain alive. Because to live is not merely to breathe. Life is more than breathing. The essential truth, therefore, my friends, is to make the right choices. Choosing to be a victim or choosing to be a master. Now, before you tell me that why would I choose to be a victim, let me tell you what these two things are. Both these choices are given to the same, they are both subject to the same givens of society. The boundary conditions remain the same, they don't change. When it rains, the victim also gets wet, and the master also gets wet. When the economy goes up and down, it affects everybody. What the difference lies in the approach to whatever is happening, in the attitude. And on that respect, between a victim and a master, there's a world of difference. Victims are people who complain. They think of excuses. They blame others. And in the end, they give up, and sometimes they perish. So the first diagnostic tool is to reflect on our conversations. When we speak, what do we speak more about? Do we complain more, or are we solution focused? Problems need solutions, not complaints. Just by talking about a problem over and over, the problem will not go away. It actually makes you very depressed, because the whole time you're talking this negative stuff. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Whether it's the environment, whether it is the institution, whether it is the government, whether it is anybody, and most people, if they can't find anyone to blame, they blame God. They say, it is my fate, what can I do? As if God has nothing else to do than to write a bad fate for you. Ajib. We don't look at ourselves. We don't say, how did this happen to me? We look at all kinds of other things. There's a wonderful story in today's Deccan Herald of this boy who has cerebral palsy, CP, and what he did with his life. Amazing. Just read that story. Fantastic story about how this boy and his mother, how she guided him, and he became a doctor. And he said, my aim was to become the first CP doctor. Not a doctor to cure CP, but the doctor with CP. Amazing. Just think about that. The very fact that you are sitting here hale and hearty and healthy is something to be thankful for, yes? Here's a guy with CP, with cerebral palsy, and of course, I don't have to explain to you what that is. I hope I don't have to explain to you what that is. Huh? So the masters, on the other hand, are people who are solution focused. All right, here is a problem, what do I do? Even if it hurts, maybe I cry for a little bit, but then I'm not going to sit there and whine all the time. No, no. Now that it has happened, what is the solution? How do I change this world? How do I change my world? What do I do where I can make a positive difference in life? Always, 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 I am a shameless idealist. I believe, sometimes logically, sometimes illogically, that it is always possible to make a positive difference in life. And I have yet to be proven wrong. And that's what I want to say to you. Take this belief. It is always possible to make a positive difference in life. It's just a matter of thinking how to do that. And that's why I gave you some very amazing stories. Dasrath Manjhi and so on and so forth. People with no resources, who should just quietly lie down and die, but they refuse. Instead of quietly lying down and dying, they change the world. They change their world, and maybe the rest of the world does not know about them. Who cares? That's their ignorance. That does not remove the greatness of what this one man did. And there are many such stories. Make a positive difference in life. All right? The price of success, and this is where the point I made, which is that even though everybody wants success, not everybody is successful. Let me give you an assignment. When you go out of here, catch the first person you see on the street and ask him, do you want to be successful or do you want to be a failure? What do you think they will say? I want to be the biggest failure in the world. Now, even that is a success, because he doesn't want to be an ordinary failure. He wants to be the biggest failure. Success. Everybody in the world and his wife wants success. But not everybody is successful. You know why? Let me explain by giving you an example. Supposing I told you that tomorrow I am going back to Hyderabad and then I intend to buy a car. What will you ask me? Which car, right? So I'm going to tell you, I said, doctor, what do you mean which car? I told you I want to buy a car, right? So what do you mean which car? Is there something called a car? Is there something called a car? Yes or no? Which one? We come back to this thing, right? You know what I'm saying? Supposing I say I want to buy a car and I have 100,000 rupees, 1 lakh of rupees in my pocket, and I go to the Rolls Royce showroom and I say I've come to buy a car. So the salesman says, sir, how much money do you have? I said, I have 100,000 rupees. He said, wow, you got 100,000 rupees? Fantastic. I said, please come with me. He will take his iPad and he will show me a 3D model of a, and he will say, you know that arrow there? If you just, if you rub your finger like that, it will turn. You can see the car, underneath the car, on top of the car, behind the car, and so on and so forth. And you please give me the 100,000 rupees, because this is what you will get for 100,000 rupees. You get to look at the picture of a Rolls Royce. Do you get the point I'm saying? Success, everybody wants success, but the reason why everybody is not successful is because not everybody invests in success. And the reason they don't invest in success is because they have no clue what does it cost. They say, I want to be successful. What does it mean? What does it mean? That's like saying I want to buy a car. Okay, you are not there to buy a bicycle, I agree, so you are somewhere. But you still can't get anything because there is no such thing called a car. There is a BMW and there is a Rolls Royce and there is a Bentley and there is a Nano and there is a Maruti and there is this and there is that. There is nothing called a car. There are different brands and each one has a price tag, and the only way that you are going to get that brand is if you have the money to pay that price. Yes? And that is the great secret about success. So my submission to you is, define success. What does success mean to you? And the more clear you are about that definition, the more likely you are to be successful. Because then you have to invest in that definition. And don't say, I want to be a great doctor. What is the meaning of a great doctor? You want to be overweight? Great doctor. Takes 3 cars to take him to the hospital. What is a great doctor? Define. Point I'm making is not just a nice sounding definition. No. What is the meaning of a great doctor? I'll tell you my memory of a great doctor. My memory of a great doctor was a man who, first of all, never wanted to do private practice. Until I sort of kept on after him, I said, you have to do private practice and everybody else does it and so on, and look at this person, look at that person. And conditions at home were not great. So he said, here you are a very good doctor, brilliant diagnosis, people love you, you have Shifa in your hand, and why don't you want to do private practice? So after forcing, he decided one day to set up a clinic. So now this clinic is set and there is a line of patients in that clinic from here to kingdom come. Now he's sitting in this clinic till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the night. So I said, well, this is good, So at the end of the month, he's going to make some good money because he's got all these hundreds of patients who come there. But you know what? This great doctor, at the end of the month, he makes a loss. I said, what kind of thing is this? How is it possible to make a loss? You've got this clinic, you've got all the patients in the world who are coming to this clinic, and you make a loss. It is strange. This is something this is not supposed to happen. This is, I didn't learn this in business school, right? So I said, how did it happen? He said, I don't know. I said, no, all right, hold on. So let me come and observe your practice. He said, oh, sure, come. Here's the chair, sit down. What do I see? I see this great doctor, the patient comes, one elderly woman. She comes, He diagnoses and he writes a prescription, and then he gives her the prescription, and then he puts his hand in his pocket, he gives her the money for the medicines, and obviously he doesn't take a fee. So I said, what is this? This is practice, this is business. So he tells me, what is the sense of me writing a medicine which he cannot buy? What is the point? So I said, you can at least take a fee from her. He said, if she had the fee, she would have bought the money. She would have bought the medicine. If she had the money to pay the fees, she would have been able to buy the medicine. So where is the question of taking a fee? And what is the good of me sitting here as a doctor? I know what is wrong with her. I know the medicine will cure that disease, but she cannot buy the medicine. I write it on a piece of paper and give her. She's going to eat the paper. What is she going to do with the paper? Yeah? Ajib, huh? Strange people lived in this world. Eh? Great doctor. And at that time, his other job was in the factory, in the government. And the factory decided, they got a new IAS officer there, and he decided to start a superannuation scheme. So to retire workers off. And it's the old good old days when nobody had a birth certificate. Right? So how do you now find out how old the person is? So doctor decides, right? So what does this doctor do? He looks at the guy, as long as he is physically fit, he writes an age for him. And invariably that age is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, less than what the guy actually is. So now this guy has 3, 4, 5 years of service which he does, and when he retires, he gets a higher pension and so on and so on. So one day recently I went in that area where this great doctor used to live, and I met one of those workers, an old man called Ram Singh, Lambada tribal guy. So he met me and he was very happy and so on and so on. And then he called me, he said, I want to show you something. He takes me into his house and he says, this is our God. This is our God. This is who we worship. So I'm making tawbah and say, La hawla la quwwata illa billah. What is he talking about? This is my God. Whose photo do I see there? I see the photo of my father. That was that great doctor with no business sense. But with a heart that was big enough to accommodate everybody in it. Everybody. I am not condoning that Ram Singh should be worshipping him. Of course, he should not be worshipping him. He should be worshipping his creator. But I am saying to you that this is the meaning of the price of success. To do that, we lived in constrained circumstances. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did good for all of us, and this always happens. But my mother had to make choices. We had to make choices. And the choice was not between, do I want a BlackBerry or do I want an Android? That was not the choice. Real choices. And none of those would have probably been necessary to do if my father charged a proper fee, or if he did not go overboard by giving patients money to buy medicines. But then also, maybe I would not be standing here talking about it. And you would not have these unknown people, poor old men and women, who in the worldly sense are nobody. Who cares about some Ramsing? Except that man. And who feels good about listening to that except me? And that's why the key thing is to define success and to be prepared to pay the price of success with great joy. It's not really a price. It's an investment in yourself, investment in your own akhirah, investment in what you will say when you stand before Allah. Because believe me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us for every good that we do, no matter to whom that good is done. No matter. And the dalil, the proof of this is the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Jannah, he gave paradise to a man who gave water to a thirsty dog. In the hot summer, this dog, the water was down in a well, the dog was thirsty, tongue hanging out, panting for water. Obviously the dog cannot get into the well, so this man, he also had nothing, so he tied a rope, a string to his shoe, and he dipped the shoe in the well and he gave water to a thirsty dog. And for that action alone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave his sins and he gave him Jannah. So what do you think Allah will do when we do good to people? No matter who they are. That is never a criterion. That must never be a criterion. For anyone, especially doctors, of course. And that's why my success depends on how serious I am about success. Am I willing to invest? Am I willing to change? Because believe me, a lot of what I am saying will require mental change here. Attitude change in the mind. And then can I stick through the pain? Anything new is painful. Anything new will be difficult. That's why I said success is inevitable, but only for those who really want it. My friends, there are two kinds of people in the world. Those who seek ways to succeed and those who talk about why they couldn't succeed. It's our choice which one we want to be. And in the final analysis, it all matters. Everything that you do or choose not to do communicates brand value and character. I want to end with that. Thank you very much for giving me this honor of addressing you, of coming here. This is not my first time here. I think it's my third time to Yenapoya University. And thank you very much for, especially to the Vice Chancellor and all the Dean and the Head of Department and others for taking the time to be here. I am greatly honored, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you and to bless this institution and to give you or give all of you great success in all that you do. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.